Hey guys, it's Scrappinkaty, and I am bringing you day 17 of Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches. And today's sketch is a 2-page layout, so it's going to take a while, but I hope you'll stick around to the end. For day 17, here is a look at the sketch. So for all you 2-page layout girls and guys, this one is for you. And I am actually going to be using the Cake Day Scrapbooking Workshop Kit. You get the same paper and sticker sheet, but in the kit you get exclusive pattern paper and exclusive die cuts. And so that's why I prefer to buy the kit, and I'm going to be using that to make this 2-page layout documenting our youngest son's birthday several years ago. So this should be fun. So I'm going to grab all my materials and I'll be right back. Here is a quick look at those gorgeous papers, two-sided. So one side you get this one and the other one you get that one. So here is a look. I'm loving all the colors. The Wildberry, even though I like that, the photos I'm going to be using have a lot of orange in them. So I'm probably not going to be using that side of that pattern paper. And then here are the the die cuts that I was telling you about. So that sketch had some circles on it. I'm going to be using that. And then you've got just a whole bunch of squares that can be used as presents, as well as there's an oversized cake somewhere over here that I'm going to be popping out and using. And then we've got some exclusive pattern paper. So this one is definitely going to come in handy. Again, because of the oranges in my son's photos. Before I start assembling the layout, remember this exclusive paper? I'm going to use some of it, but it has that Wildberry stripe in it. And if you recall, my son's photos do not have that Wildberry. I also have a couple of zip strips, the same thing. So I'm taking this glossy cardstock that's on sale right now, and I'm just cutting not 1/4 of an inch. Probably whatever's between 1/8 and 1/4. I'm cutting strips like that, and then I am just going to glue that down and hide that Wildberry. And then I'm also going to do the same thing with those zip strips. These that have the Wildberry in there, I want to hide that as well, just to make it go just a little bit better with my photos. And I'm going to cut those at 1/2 inch. And just lay them over those zip strips and cut those off. So here are the zip strips. Let's start with those. And I think I'm just going to use tape adhesive since they are pretty wide. So I'm just going to put tape adhesive on that zip strip and glue it down. And then I can trim it off. And then that way it's going to customize this zip strip to match my photos. It's going to look a whole lot better than that Wildberry, in my opinion. And it's okay if a little bit of that Wildberry shows. I don't want the majority of it being Wildberry. For this pattern paper, I've already cut the 2 pieces down to size, and I am just going to add a thin line of liquid adhesive over this Wildberry stripe, and then just take these pieces of this UV coated candy apple cardstock and just apply them over. And the good thing about this liquid adhesive is it dries really quick, so I'm just going to repeat that process, and then I can turn these over and cut them down. And you can probably see by those zip strips right there on my left just what a difference, what a change it is just by adding this extra color. And this goes for any pattern paper. You can just kind of make it your own to match your photos. I'm a big proponent of not being matchy-matchy with your photos, but you definitely want the papers to complement. And Wildberry and candy apple don't really complement each other in this instance. Then I'll just trim those off. I'm going to save those for these. And then I'm going to flip this over and do the same thing. So I'm going to do one last step. If you notice in this zip strip how they have lines, well, I kind of covered up the line that went on the wild berry. So I'm just going to draw a second line right here beside it. Technically, it should go on the candy apple, but I think it'll be fine just beside it. Just kind of add that extra little detail that's in the rest of the little squares or the little color blocks. Definitely think that makes that just a little more cohesive. For this left page, I am just going to start laying things down left to right. I am going to tilt my paper just a little bit. Sometimes it's easier to see when it's tilted, and everything pretty much is just going to go flush. We've got a couple of border pieces. I want that red up at the top simply because I have a little, see how there's a short space right here before the red is at the edge? I wanted those to kind of be separated. So we've got that. And then we've got this adorable happy birthday. Isn't that just so cute? I love that you can tell that it's happy birthday, but it's just kind of all over the place. And then we've got that other zip strip. And I think on this one, I want to do it opposite. So I want to go with the little tiny red piece at the bottom. We're going to do that. And then I have a couple of photos that I'm going to be using. So that one's going to go there, this one here, and then this one here. Before I do that, I have some circles that I'm actually going to be using as balloons. Actually, I think I'm going to do it this way. So I want this one about right here. And then I want this one right here, but I want to add some 3D foam tape at the bottom just so it sticks up just a little bit. Again, for dimension. And then I'm going to add, it's actually little heart borders that came with this kit, but I'm going to add it as the little ties to the balloon. So I don't know if you can tell yet, but you see how the top is actually glued to the project, and then that bottom portion is glued down. This is what I'm talking about. These are heart borders, but I think I can cut them apart, and I'm going to use them as the little tie part for the balloon. And I still have enough of the hearts together as a border in case I want to use it on additional layouts. Just going to add some some liquid adhesive. And then just tuck these under. It's going to be really easy on the one with 3D foam tape, but it's also going to be pretty easy with the one without, because I don't ever add adhesive right up to the bottom or the edges. You guys know that. So I can do this right here. So I'm going to pull up that little piece and then tuck that down. And then once I add my balloon strings, I think that that's going to look exactly like little balloon ties. So now back to these photos. So nothing special about these. I'm going to have a lot of white space around them, but I may doodle or something. I'm not sure. I thought about adding a color cardstock behind it, but I'm not going to have it on the other layout, so I figured that I wouldn't. So on this one, I want to mat it a couple of times. I have got a couple of coordinating pattern paper from Cake Day Cut, and I just want to add some lemonade ink around the edges. I've already done that to the pieces of pattern paper that are attached. You barely can see it, but I did that in Glacier. And although this green apple is not lemonade, you can use other colors to ink distress. You don't have to be all matchy-matchy again. That's probably going to be the word of the day, just to warn y'all. And I'm not sold on whether I want to do that kind of askew or straight. I also added 3D foam tape to my photo and to this, but not to this one. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this one down because I know I want it flush with the paper or the page. I'm going to bring out my T-ruler to make sure that it's straight. I want to move it down just a tad. Pretty happy with that. I think there's a little bit more on this side, but all in all, we're good. And then I think I'm going to do this one askew, and then my photo will also be straight. So I'm going to leave my T-ruler right there. And when I do things that are crooked, I try to make opposite corners equal distance. So you see how that corner and that corner are about equal distance, and then this corner and this corner are equal distance from each other. And then for my photo, I'm going to put straight. Now, my 3D foam tape is not anywhere near the edges, so I can tuck things down. And let me move that up a little bit. I thought I would be able to eyeball it, but I'm thinking that's not going to work. And then I want it centered left to right. Okay, so we are good with that. As always, I am going to put this off to the side before I add stickers or embellishing. And I am going to go ahead and put together the right side layout. And then I like to embellish them both at the same time. This layout comes together much like the other one. I'm going to start by adhering the outside pieces, making sure that they are flush with that right side. And then in this case, the bottom of the layout. So I've got that custom made pattern paper. And then I'm bringing over that happy birthday paper. Again, on 2-page layouts, it's important that what you have on one side, you kind of mimic that same thing on the other. And in saying that, I need to mimic this zip strip. Now, if you recall, the other zip strips are going vertically. This one's going to go horizontally. For a couple of reasons. Number one, the sketch calls for it. Number two, the photos that I'm using over here don't really allow for there to be a zip strip. So these photos are going to be right here. Again, having that white edge that left layout did. For these photos, since there's 3, usually I start with the middle photo and then make sure that the top and the bottom, or the left and the right, depending on what you're going, is centered out to the edges. On this particular one, there's going to be a gap between. So I am going to adhere that top photo and then mimic the same border or the same white mat on the bottom. And then on the middle one, I'm going to mimic the same border. And then we're going to have a gap right there. I'm going to put a sticker or something to that effect for the series of him blowing the candles out. I'm going to be building a cake, and this is one of the exclusive die cuts that comes with the kit. But you can see here, there's a big, huge layer of cake that has this wild berry. I do not want that, so I want it in this nectarine. So I am just going to trace this and then cut it out. And where the dark wild berry is, I'm actually going to be using the shiny side of the cardstock. And then, of course, where the light is, I'm going to be using the side that I'm drawing on. And because this is just a layer of a cake and it really doesn't go with anything else, it doesn't have to be perfect. I do want to cut inside my pencil line to make sure it doesn't show. So on that piece of cake, I don't know if you can see here, but you see all those little sprinkles. I'm actually going to add that to the back side of this cardstock using, once again, my favorite stamp set. This is perfectly imperfect patterns. And there's this one background, and I'm just going to stamp it all over this before I cut it out. And it's going to be subtle, but I think it's just going to kind of add that little extra dimension like we were talking about. Sometimes stamps add dimension, sometimes 3D foam tape, sometimes inking. It's just so cool, all the things that we can do to add dimension to our images. And it's going to be subtle, but so was the original cake. You know, you could barely see it. So, see how cute that is? Again, super versatile stamp set. I'll leave that link down below. And now I'm going to fussy cut this out. And now is a wonderful time to remind you, if you are liking this video, go ahead and hit that little thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you like this video, and it'll show you more of the same. And it also helps me out in the process. Okay, so I've got that cut out, and now I want to add just a strip of this glossy paper. It's not super straight on the inspiration layer that I'm getting rid of, but so I want to kind of mimic it. So when I'm cutting this out, so I'm not using my paper trimmer, I'm just kind of adding some waves, and of course it's not going to be this long. I'm going to glue it on and then trim it off, but I'm just kind of cutting crooked. Believe it or not, cutting with scissors is not my forte. So while I could probably pretend to say that I am doing that just for this cake, I can probably be honest and say that it would probably turn out just as crooked if I was trying to cut straight. So I am going to put that about right there, and then go ahead and trim those edges off. And again, I just love how this glossy cardstock just adds those perfect little touches to cards and layouts and everything else. You guys have already seen me use it over and over again. For this cake layer, we have several pieces. I'm going to line them all out. And then also we want to add another balloon to the side like we did the other one. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to center this cake stand in this 8-inch piece of pattern paper. And so I want the middle of it going down 4 inches, which in this case, the way I have it lined up on my glass board, would be 9 inches. And then I'm going to lay down this layer, but I'm going to end up using 3D foam tape for that, so I don't want to do it yet. I'm going to adhere this layer next. And that way I can kind of tuck it in behind where this is going. And as far as these layers go, I just kind of want to keep them even space between the left and the right. These are definitely uneven layers, and that is perfectly okay. And then this one is going to get put right there. And then same with this one. I decided to add 3D foam tape to this layer, and I'm going to have it just plopped up on top of there, again trying to mainly center left to right and not worry about this layer. I went ahead and adhered that with foam tape, so I figured it's time to do some up there. And then again, you can see those lovely wild berry candles. So we are going to fix that again with some of this some of this glossy paper. I trimmed it much like I did that glossy piece for that cake layer. I tried to kind of make it crooked. And it can go all the way to the bottom, even though these other candles don't, because it's actually going to be tucked in behind this cake layer. So the only thing I'm trying to do is make sure that some are straight, some aren't. And then again, I'm just using this liquid glue to adhere those down. And I think it's going to look okay. I think it's definitely going to look better than wildberry candles when I don't have wildberry anywhere else. And I may make this one just, or here's one. This looks kind of crooked. Not as crooked as the other ones, but it'll work. And then get those put up, and then we can get that taped down. So again, I'm just going to tuck this under here, kind of like that. And kind of like with that other balloon, I'm going to add some 3D foam tape underneath, underneath the top of the candles, just to kind of make them where they pop up off of that birthday pattern paper. I probably should have inked behind them, but you know, hindsight 2020. Okay, so we've got that, and then we definitely need this balloon somewhere. And I probably should have done that before this. So let me pull that up right quick and add some adhesive. And we're going to tuck that under. Get that glued back down, and then of course I cut another one of those nectarine hearts. It's going to act as the balloon tie. Sometimes when I craft I need like 20 hands. Pretty sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so I like it right there. It's probably not, what do you call it? When things aren't sized the right way or anything like that. You know, there's this huge cake in this little balloon, but it's all about the photos in the end, correct? So I've got that. So I brought this back, and now I have the sticker sheet. So I am probably going to put, let me go ahead and get my anti-static pouch, and let's take some sticky off of these stickers first. I am going to go ahead and add my balloon strings. So I'm just going to follow this down and of course kind of make it squiggly, and then it can hide behind this photo mat. And then just kind of tie it off. So then let's see, we have the lets. So let's add some 3D foam tape to those. So I am thinking something along the lines of this. And then there is a black party. And I think I'm going to have that up above our photo. So I'm going to lay out that P right there. And then the rest of the word, aside from the exclamation mark, is actually one whole piece. So I'm going to get this removed from the sticker sheet, making sure that all those centers stay in place. So I pulled off a couple of more stickers, and I'm going to add 3D foam tape to those. So on birthday, I want it high enough that it sticks off into the yellow, you know, because it's already green. And then boy is glacier, and so boy can go anywhere. And so I think I want it all the way off. Let's bring in this other layout and add some stickers and embellishments to it. So this Make-A-Wish that I had, remember I told you there was that gap between the series of photos? So this is what I envisioned going between there. And, you know, after all, I hope he's making a wish. I think that's what he's doing in that bottom photo, is looking at us. or definitely my husband, and saying, okay, you're going to give me what I wish for? I think I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. Again, kind of centering left to right and making sure that as much that is hanging up over the top photo is hanging up over that middle photo. And then I have this little scallop from the die cuts. So I'm going to cut one of those scallops off and then cut another one. And then I'm actually going to glue these to each side of that little sentiment. And then where that hole is, we have some enamel dots that came with this collection. I might put an enamel dot in the middle of those. So we've got that, and then let's draw those heartstrings. Now off camera, I did add 2 heartstrings. You didn't see that, but I'll show it to you in the close-ups. I just think it kind of added just a little bit more, made it a little bit bolder. We got a lot of colors going on, so I wanted to make sure that we had those done and that they would show. So now let's take a look. So we've got Yum and Cake Time. And I am almost thinking I want the stickers to kind of break up these layers. I'm going to take off the adhesive and I'm just going to bite the bullet and say that's what I'm going to do. So, oh my gosh, that could go for, can't believe it's your birthday. That could go for, oh my gosh, the cake is so good. I mean, you name it. I'm going to have this go down into that glossy nectarine cardstock. Pull out my T-ruler just to make sure it's straight. I never can tell when I've got crooked things going everywhere. And then we've got the Yum. That's also good because all my yellow is at the top of my layout. So couldn't decide if I wanted to say Yum Cake Time or Cake Time Yum. And then we've got these little bitty confetti things. So that one I'm going to kind of have on and off. And then we're going to bring in those Cake Day dots, which I've used on several projects that have nothing to do with Cake Day. Again, I want to stay away from the wild berry, but we've got some yellows and sundances, and then of course that green apple. So for this, I want to bring in this glacier over to this side since I've got so much glacier with those cake layers. So I am just putting those, into those holes. I'm pressing down really well. And then I'm going to add some yellow around here. Some lemonade. Maybe add a third one right here. And then I need to bring some over here. And I think I'm going to go with right around here. So I think I want to do the largest one. Kind of tucked under there to ground it from that piece of zip strip. And then let's find a little baby one. We can put that right onto the photo.
Before I bring the sketch back in, I wanted to remind you that the Creative Design Team membership is open once again. It'll only be open until March 31st, and this is where you will get exclusive content that is not seen here on my YouTube channel. I'll leave a link down below.
So on the left side, we definitely had a big circle, the title, and then some vertical photos. I did not go with the big circle. I took that big circle as a focal piece and I actually switched that to the other side for the cake. I do have my title right there. And then, of course, our photo, and then the 2 4x6s. And then on the left side, instead of 2 4x6s, I did the row of 3.5 by 3.5s. And then I did the oversized cake instead of additional photos. And I really like it. The only other thing I'm thinking about is maybe adding, this is one of the die cuts, I'm thinking about maybe adding my journaling to this and then sticking it over here. I'm not for certain on that, that's why I don't want to put it down yet, but I'm thinking that that would just be a cute little tucked in thing right there, and maybe even add a tab off to the left so you can just to kind of decorate it, I guess. And that is that, my friends. I will leave links down below to all the products that I use. This cake day is still available if you want to grab it. And I will also leave links down below to all the other YouTube channels playing along with Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches. We are halfway through the 30 days. And then she has a Facebook page, so I'll link that. I always link that. And you can go check it out and join that Facebook group. And then show us your take on the sketch. We always like to see those.